I never learned their names. I didn't have to. The fighting introduced them for me. Every night, almost on schedule, shouting bled through the thin drywall we shared. I'm not talking about playful arguments or silly disagreements. These were real. The kind where voices crack with rage, where you can hear furniture shifting and slamming, and where the silence that follows feels more dangerous than the noise itself. I tried to tell myself it wasn't my business. Apartment walls are thin, after all. People have problems. But still, a strange thing started happening. I began waking up every single night, just moments before it all began. It always started late. Somewhere between 2 and 3 in the morning, a man's voice loud, sharp, and accusatory. Then a woman's voice, much softer, almost pleading, trying to be defensive. Then, inevitably, the sound of something heavy hitting the wall we shared. It was a dull, sickening thud, followed by the sound of muffled crying. I learned the rhythm without even trying. It became a terrible, unwanted soundtrack to my nights. First the shouting, then something thrown, a door slammed, and finally, a heavy, suffocating silence. The silence was always the worst part, because I knew, with a knot of dread in my stomach, that it never lasted. The cycle would just begin again. I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding in my chest. Part of me wanted to call someone, to intervene, but another part was paralyzed by fear. What could I even do? I didn't know them. I didn't know their story. So I did nothing. I just listened, night after night, as their private war played out on the other side of my bedroom wall. The routine became so ingrained that my body started to anticipate it. My eyes would snap open at 2 a.m. on the dot, my ears already straining for the first angry word. It felt like I was a prisoner to their conflict, trapped in an audience of one. Then one night, it didn't happen. The usual time came and went. No shouting, no crying, no frantic footsteps pacing back and forth. At first, I felt a wave of pure relief wash over me. Finally, I could get a full night's sleep. But as the minutes ticked by, that relief was replaced by something else. A quiet, unsettling feeling. I still woke up right on schedule, but the apartment felt full, like the air itself was holding its breath, thick with anticipation, and then I heard it. It wasn't yelling. It wasn't crying. It was the sound of something heavy being dragged across the floor next door. It was a slow, deliberate scrape. Drag, pause. Drag, pause. I lay perfectly still, my entire body rigid, listening until the sound stopped. The silence that followed was different. It was final. The next day, I was on edge, expecting the worst. But then, as I was leaving for work, I saw them. Both of them, together, in the hallway. And they were laughing, not just polite chuckles, but genuine, carefree laughter. I looked for any sign of the previous night's turmoil, a bruise, a mark, any lingering tension in their eyes, but there was nothing. They seemed perfectly fine, too calm, too normal. It was deeply unsettling. That night, I braced myself, listening intently. The explosive argument never came. But I did hear something else, a whisper. It was just one voice, a man's, speaking in low, hushed tones. The unnerving part was the rhythm. He would whisper a few words, then pause, as if waiting for a response that never came. As I was listening, my blood ran cold when a soft knock echoed through the wall between our apartments. 3 distinct taps. I froze, not daring to move a muscle. A moment later, the whisper came again, but this time it was closer, seeming to emanate from the wall itself. "Don't answer." The whispers continued every night after that. It was always the same single voice, always quiet, always patient. And it always stopped the second I sat up in bed or made any sound. It felt like it was listening for me as much as I was listening for it. One night, driven by a morbid curiosity I couldn't suppress, I got out of bed and pressed my ear firmly against the cold plaster of the wall. I could hear breathing on the other side. It wasn't panicked or angry like before. It was slow and steady, patient. And then I heard something that made my heart stop. I heard my own voice, muffled, slightly delayed, as if played back from a recording. It was repeating something I had whispered to myself earlier that night when I thought I was alone. That's when I lost my nerve and instinctively knocked on the wall. The knock came back immediately. But it wasn't from their side. It was from my side of the wall. The next morning, there was a notice taped to the building's main entrance by the management company. It was a standard memo about keeping the laundry room clean, but at the bottom, there was a small, handwritten addition. The apartment next to mine, 3B, was now vacant. The tenants had moved out overnight. There was no forwarding address. A strange mix of relief and unease washed over me. It was over. But that night, at the usual time, just as I was starting to drift off to sleep, there was a knock at my front door. 3 soft, deliberate taps. My heart hammered against my ribs. I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. No one. The hallway was empty. Confused, I unlatched the deadbolt and slowly opened the door. There was absolutely no one there. But then, from inside my own apartment, from the wall behind me, I heard the fighting start again. And this time, both of the voices, the screaming one and the crying one, sounded exactly like mine. I don't live there anymore. I broke my lease and moved out the very next day. I couldn't spend another night in that place. But sometimes, even now in my new apartment, I wake up late at night. The room is silent, but I feel it. That same heavy, watchful stillness. I wake up just before the noise is supposed to start. And I swear in the darkness, something is waiting for me to fall asleep first. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to follow for more.